Hello and welcome. You're watching us here on a very, very special occasion. We're celebrating the 75th anniversary of India's independence. And who better than extremely special people to tell us the story of India's successes? We have with us Mr. Bharat Puri and Piyush Pandey. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for joining in.
Pleasure being here, Mangalam.
At what point in your life did you understand the concept of being Indian and nationalities, etc.? And what did it mean to you at that point in time?
See, I think for our generation, when we grew up, being Indian was still something that was intrinsic to you. It was something that you were proud of. It was celebrated. And you really saw, for example, what India was really all about. Some of us who started in sales, we saw the real India and connected with the real India. And over a period of time, you realized that this has a lot going for it.
We were born in middle-class households where Indianness was celebrated almost every week, where everything that you were taught was given to you as in a form of a doha to explain things to you. Every tradition was followed even when you didn't have that kind of money, but tradition was followed at your means. So I grew up, 84 is the first time I stepped out of this country. But I agree with Bharat that 82 when Asia took place and color TV came to India and the TV proliferation happened. That's when the biggest challenge was for marketers and for advertising agencies. So till then, I think we are born and brought up with complete Indianness.
It was Indianness that brought us together.
Yes.
You know, here I was as a young marketing person at Asian Paints. Until then, Asian Paints advertised in English.
Yes.
And this was the same time India had opened up, you know, color television was on. And I said, listen, if the mass of this country speaks so many wonderful languages, why are we advertising in English? Now, those days, the practice was you presented in English and then they translated. And a lot of times they transliterated. So there was this wonderful campaign which was Celebrate with Asian Paints. It came as translated as Asian Paints ke saath jashan manao. I said, guys, I want somebody who has grown up speaking Hindi in his home. And there was a certain mustachioed gentleman who was the Hindi copy chief. And he was sent saying, you know, there's this client who actually wants to advertise in local languages. And that's when two of us got together. I explained and he said, listen, leave it with me. And before he had reached home, he rang me up and said, I've got it. And it was Har Khushi Mein Rang Laye.
It was not just about Hindi. Then we went on to do stuff for Pongal, Durga Puja, Onam and Diwali.
You spoke about regional, campaigns that you ran. That also brought to fore a small music director then who's now become the global Indian that we know. You want to talk about both of that?
The fascinating thing with Pongal was we were very clear. We want to shoot it in Chennai. We want a local point of view. We don't want the traditional motifs and visuals and like, you know, the tourist view of Pongal. It has to be Pongal as celebrated in a Tamil home. And I remember Rajiv Menon, who lived in Chennai, was shooting it there. At that time, you know, there was a famous music director who was based in Mumbai.
Those days.
No, but before that, there was another music director who was supposed to do this commercial. And Rajiv tells us, actually, he's got this other guy. He's an upcoming fellow called Dilip Kumar. And, you know, Dilip Shekhar or Dilip Kumar? Dilip Shekhar.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, this thing. And we said, sure. And like, you know, we listened to it and said, listen, this is it. And that famous tune of Adiya Mama, it just captivated. It doesn't matter what language it was, it captivated.
Yes.
And in fact, you know, I still remember showing that commercial to people who don't speak a word of Tamil, and they still had moist eyes at the end of the commercial.
And Dilip Shekhar turned out to be?
A certain gentleman called A.R. Rahman.
It's a beautiful story.
You want to say Har Ghar Kuch Kehta Hai in your...
Har Ghar Kuch Kehta Hai was a basic thing that the idea was that their homes are a reflection of their personality, on which one day I just sat down and wrote. I think I remember it, so I'll say it for you. It says, हर घर चुपचाप से ये कहता है कि अंदर इसमें कौन रहता है. छत बताती है ये किसका आसमां है, रंग कहते हैं किसका ये जहां है, कमरों में किसकी कल्पना झलकती है, इस फर्श पर नंगे पैर किसके बच्चे चलते हैं.
वाह.
हर घर चुपचाप से ये कहता है कि अंदर इसमें कौन रहता है.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. And the line that stayed with me from the original was, "Yahan rotiyan kabhi gin ke nahi
That is
banai
the
jati."
second one.
That's the second one. Okay. There was also a time where, globally looking at Indians wasn't, the Indians were pretty underconfident of their own identity because of the way the world looked at Indians. How did you navigate through those challenges?
See, I think you're absolutely right. There was a time, I remember in my days in Cadbury, the number of international Cadbury managers you could count on the fingers of one hand. And here was all this capability, here was all this smartness, but largely within India. The good thing is, as India began to open up, the wonderful thing that happened was, people began to see that what was originating out of India, and suddenly you said, my God, this applies to X country, this applies to Y country. And slowly and steadily, India's voice, first in a multinational stage, and then, pretty much on a world stage, started to resonate. And suddenly it became that, listen, these guys seem to understand emerging markets, these guys seem to understand what's happening as far as consumers are concerned. Can they get bigger roles? And to complete the loop, it was a matter of great happiness. Cadbury finally had about 100 managers outside India manning global positions, because they'd proven themselves within India, and there were many people asking for them.
So, the proverbial century happened.
Yes.
Both of you are
I'll
massive
give you
cricket
one
fans.
more addition to this century from the Ogilvy side of it.
Yes.
When Ogilvy internationally pitched for Mondelez by that time, the meeting was in Chicago, and the person who was asked to come and lead the meeting was yours truly,
Wow.
an Indian.
Wow. That's
For the
some
global
story.
pitch.
And, the other thing is that since you're talking about the Indians being amazing at all the other global roles, etc., because of the experience that they've had in India, we've seen a lot of companies, international companies, they've struggled in India, barring the ones which are committed to India for the long term. Case in point, something like Unilever, you would have Cadbury's, you would have, a lot of Nestle's of the world. They've done extremely well because of their longevity and understanding of India as a country. But then there are a lot of others who've tried to, replicate their successful models in their respective countries to India. Is there a playbook for success in India for other companies to come and, do well here?
I definitely think there is.
And what is that?
India is clearly a country where you cannot do a cut, copy, paste from anywhere else, because frankly, India itself is not one homogeneous country.
Exactly.
We're a set of, and we can keep debating how many countries. But India's diversity is something that you have to cognize of when you explain to fellows that, listen, the average good marketeer advertises in 6 to 8 languages. For most people, it's a complete shock. I mean, how can that? And at times, when you're advertising, you're doing it with different castes, so on. As far as the India playbook is concerned, my simple thing is the people who've thought global and acted local are the fellows over a period of time have understood and got India. Those who've thought that, listen, I will think global, I will approve what's happening in India, in a Singapore or in a London or in the US, over time have struggled. Again, like, the proverbial monopoly player, they've gone back to start and started all over again.
Right.
Because they haven't got the fact that this is a market which has the size and complexity of a large market, but has the revenues, at least in the initial years, of a small market. And, therefore multiplying number of consumers into, usage occasions and hoping this is the potential market, that just suggests naivety.
And a lot of learning has also happened to them, to a lot of new companies, when they see the likes of Fevicol.
Right.
Because they said it's so Indian and it appeals to a carpenter, to Ratan Tata at the same time.
Take Fevicol. We've actually researched at Pidilite. There is no other country in the world where a glue brand is one of the top 10 consumer brands. Not top 10 adhesive or top 10 chemical. It's the top 10 consumer brands in the country. And that tells you a lot about India, the country, and how to win in India. And this is something a lot of times it takes a lot of experience to understand.
It does. And I mean, Fevicol ka jod for the stock market has now become Fevicol ka moat. And that is what everyone talks about. And I have to also, give due credit to the way Unilever went ahead and did the WIMI strategy, winning in many Indias. And that actually signifies how there are many Indias and companies have to localize their strategies.
You have to. You see, if the basic principle that a marketer and advertiser, because of the marketer, I have said it 50 years back, 70 years back, that know your audience.
Yes.
Now when you break that rule, when you go to a new country and you say, I'll do that, you don't know this audience.
This is the time where a lot of Indian companies are also looking abroad. A lot of Indian brands are finding a fair amount of success. Pidilite, for instance, as well, is looking to replicate the success that it's had in India and a lot of other emerging market nations. So what is it that you've learned from India that you're putting out there? And what is it that you're learning from there that you're bringing back to India? If you could tell us a little about that.
Great question. See, I think the essence, as Piyush rightly says, is first and foremost understand your consumer. Nothing beats the power of observation, the power of insight and understanding what works in the country. And take Pidilite, for example.
Yeah.
We're clear we want to be an emerging markets multinational. 70% of the growth of the world is going to come out of emerging markets. Different states of India are like pretty much different emerging countries from the rest of the world. We perfect our model in India, we learn in India, we make mistakes but get it right, and then we go and still understand locally. I mean, take Bangladesh. We were not the first into Bangladesh, we went much later into Bangladesh. Fast forward to 10 years later, we're the leader there. In our categories, we have the same strength in Fevicol that we have in India. Fascinatingly, anecdotally, I go there, the immigration guy asks me, so what brings you here? And I said, I work for Fevicol. And he plays me a Fevicol ad.
Wow.
And that's the power of knowing that you're doing it right.
Any instance that you have from the advertising front where, a campaign that did extremely well in India, you thought could actually go global and it did?
See, a lot of times it has gone to Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka.
Yes.
But yes, the thought goes through. The thought goes through. Like if we were to do Fevicol in those markets that we still have in mind, what would Bharat and I say? We would say that our success is based on a very simple thing, that nobody loves anything breaking and anything joining brings joy to you. That is the core of the brand. Now you express it your way.
75th anniversary of the independence as we're celebrating right now. Things have changed. We've opened up. A lot has happened. Where do you think we're going from here? How have we changed in those years? And what about those years would you wish are, would be present now?
I think, again, great question. I think three basic big changes, right? The first thing is the consumer has far, far more choice. I think the second is access. And as you rightly said, from your telephone onwards, today everything, the whole media scene has changed dramatically. The way you actually interact with consumers, the way your brand interacts with consumers has changed dramatically, and obviously you have to keep pace. And I think the third is prosperity.
Yes.
In the good old days when Piyush and me were, younger marketeers, there was a middle India and there was an aspirant India.
Right.
Now clearly there is a premium rich India, there is a middle India, and there's an aspirant India, and every marketeer has to have strategies for all three.
Every new technology is an enabler for you to take your idea to your audience. Never be scared of technology. At the same time, never forget that you need an idea. Technology cannot save you. देखो कंप्यूटर में झांकोगे तो डेटा दिखेगा, नजरें ऊपर उठाओगे तो दुनिया दिखेगी. And this thing about short attention span. Attention span is in your hand. If you can hold his attention, we can do an 80-seconder. If you can hold it in 30 seconds, you do a 30-seconder. I actually said to Google, and I said it to the Google marketing staff in a thing that they called me to speak.
Right.
As you're telling the world 7-second commercials on Facebook and 7-second seconders and thumb stoppers or whatever. Yes. I say, you're forgetting that I launched your brand in India with a 2.5-minute commercial.
I remember that very clearly. Now, where we are in terms of the socio-cultural situation of India, do you think back in the day there were far more risks that one could take in telling a message as against now? Because, I mean, there is a bunch of people who are suddenly trigger happy, ready to be offended, so to say.
People criticize you earlier also, they will criticize you. There's no research in the world or no politician in the world who got 100% votes.
Right.
Don't worry about them. Did you get a lot of delight? Did you sell a lot of stuff? And did you earn a lot of goodwill, which led to a lot of word of mouth? You are a happy place.
What has really changed, Mangalam, is everybody has a voice now. And that voice at times can be disproportionately loud.
Yeah.
But I think, as Piyush rightly says, as marketeers, our belief is first do the right thing. We're not here to make a comment on religion, politics, we're here to tell stories about our brands
Right.
in a certain context. If we get it wrong, we will be the first to acknowledge we've got it wrong. But a lot of times, as he rightly says, if the vast majority is giving you like, a 3/4 majority, then the other 1/4 hopefully will understand over a period of time that, listen, this is not intended to offend, harm, or do anything, but to only, for example, take the brand forward.
If something is going to spark off a kind of a problem in the society, we stay away from it.
But a lot of times we don't even know what is going
If I
to
start
cause that
ticking,
spark.
then I'll make a mistake.
Yeah.
You know that certain things, if I run an ad, can I run it to my family with my sisters and their kids sitting there and my mother sitting there? That is the basic thing. Do I have to be sensitive towards gender equality? Yes, that's a thing. We'll know the bigger things.
Right.
Now some guy will come up with their own theory. If it was a fantastic theory which we didn't think of, we'll say sorry and move.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll do a well left.
Okay, well left. Well left is what I'd say to that. But, back in the day, we were known as the land of mystics and snake charmers. That, I would believe, moved to the land of yoga, colorful, fancy dances in Bollywood, and tech support. But if you had to, promote India to the world right now, what would be the 3 things that you would say that we're a land of?
We are a land of culture. We are a land of handling diversity.
I would simply say, absolutely, we're young, we've got a solid can-do spirit, and I would say India, the best is yet to come.
Yeah.
What are the risks to that best which is yet to come?
I just think in India, a lot of times we have the tendency to score self-goals. I just think that as long as we remain on the straight and narrow, we are not easily distracted, and we create the environment which allows exactly the culture, the diversity, the country to prosper. I think the best is still to come.
All right.
And you can't go without cricket.
You can't go without cricket.
So it's very simple. You don't make stupid mistakes to get out, but you don't stop playing your shots.
Right.
Because you're scared of getting out. So play. We are playing well. Do not do the big mistakes of a self-goal or a hit wicket, in other words.
If you had to sell India once again to Indians, because a lot of them are moving abroad, I mean, how would you, what would you say to everyone?
See, I would definitely say that there's so many things to say. So one of the things would still be integration. One of the things still will be that stop calling a person a Madrasi.
Yes.
It's still not gone out. Start treating the eastern states as yourself. So we must remember that to keep this country intact, you better be a Fevicol.
All right, better be a Fevicol. That's the plug. We take a short break, come back. We do some quick fire questions. Welcome back. We're in conversation with Bharat Puri and Piyush Pandey. Gentlemen, it's been a delight, it's been an honor speaking to you about this occasion, which itself is an occasion to remember for everyone. Let's go rapid fire, because that's the season. Unfortunately, I don't have a hamper to give either of you all, but I'm sure that you all will be rapid and have a fair amount of fire as well. I'll start with you, Mr. Puri. Your favorite Indian holiday destination?
My favorite Indian holiday destination, little beyond Simla, Mashobra and beyond.
Rajasthan.
Had to be Rajasthan. Favorite Indian musician?
Favorite Indian, Kishore Kumar by a long distance.
Kishore Kumar, or maybe Bhimsen Joshi.
I'm surprised you didn't go with Ila Arun.
And now you would have then had something to write in social media about my nepotism.
Well played there, well played. The favorite Indian brand which is not yours?
Favorite Indian brand that is not mine? It's a very difficult one, because the first ones that come are mine, but I would... Titan, probably.
Titan, yours?
Now you can accuse me again, but yes.
You'll go again with Titan. But it doesn't have to be yours.
No.
It's something that you would have worked
If you
on.
definitely don't want mine, then it's Haldiram.
Okay. Wow, that's a great brand. Favorite Indian? Could be someone from history, could be someone from the present, could be someone you worked with, etc.
Favorite Indian, I just think Mahatma Gandhi is somebody you start with, and I don't think anybody has still overtaken him.
Sardar Patel.
Sardar Patel. Your favorite Indian food? I mean, this I'm sure is going to be a longer answer than...
See, this is a very difficult question. Favorite Indian food, it depends on the
Look
time
at our
of...
sizes.
Correct. And it depends on the time of the day. It depends on, like, but if you ask me for one single favorite Indian food, I would say a wonderful aloo paratha.
Khuteta ki kachori from Jaipur.
But, I'm sorry, I'm digressing here because since we speak about food, India's food actually, signifies the kind of diversity that we have, etc.
Wonderful thing is India, it doesn't matter whether you're in Madurai and you're in Shriram mess, whether you're having these lovely Rawat ka kachoris in Jaipur, or whether you're having Lucknow's royal chaat, it doesn't matter. Each of the places, these are the places to be ticked off, and everybody will keep them ready. And the thing is, my trade in 2 of the 3 companies has been a dealer-led trade. Dealers anyway in large parts of the country believe if they don't feed you, they're not, hospitable enough. This was taught to me by an old boss after I said, listen, by the time I reach the 5th or 6th shop, I'm dying. He said, now I'll tell you the trick. The moment the guy says, "Aap kya lenge?" ask for a pan. And start chewing the pan and then say, now I can't have anything else. So these are the tricks you learn along the way.
Most beautiful experience, I was shooting with Mr. Bachchan.
Right.
With the tribals in Gujarat, in Saputara, close to Nasik. And there was a shot of Mr. Bachchan having a piece of, or a bite of the meal that the tribal lady was making. And the shooting guy is Shujit Sarkar, and he had got sandwiches and us all for Mr. Bachchan and me for the lunch. And Mr. Bachchan, after first shot, he said, Piyush, come here. So I went there. I said, what sandwich mat khana. There was a red roti of some wheat, not bajra, but very bajra type, or some wheat. It looked very reddish, and a bamboo ka achar. We ate that stuff. I've never had food like this. So you will discover India in the smallest of places, and each time it's magic. I have a problem when I go out of the country. I don't have a problem in the country.
And I know what you don't like. You don't like sabzis which are called jalfrezi.
I hate them because I went to, when I go to the restaurant, they say, we'll give you veg korma, vegetable jalfrezi, mixed vegetables. मैं यार साले सब्जी का नाम तो बता दे यार. वो भिंडी है कि टिंडा है कि तोरी है. I want to have a sabji with a name.
I must tell you, with this fellow, whenever you're traveling with him, and we were together at the London Olympics, he comes to me and says, partner, and they had this whole hospitality program, we're going to this restaurant for this. He says, partner, ye wala bunk karenge kahan? Just in this little lane here, I found this Nepali fellow who's got a good Indian restaurant, we'll go there.
Well, food in India. 3 things that you think India can teach the world.
I think India can teach unity in diversity first and foremost. I think India can definitely teach the world how to keep moving ahead despite having, all of its issues, so on and so forth, keep, like the elephant, keep marching ahead. And I think India can really teach the world humility.
I mean, the national animal of India, according to me, should be the elephant for all the things that you've spoken about. 6 blind men couldn't figure out what the elephant in totality is. Keeps moving on, and it does have a fair amount of humility, I must say that. That's a tough act to follow. 3 things.
No, it doesn't have to be different 3 things.
Yes.
Facing or adverse things and living with it. That's what you're a Rajasthani, you know that when in 47 degrees they are making the roads, they are still singing songs. So the toughness, the resilience is the word I would add.
One thing from the past which is not present in India right now, and one thing from the present which you would like India to always keep in its future.
One thing from the past that is not present now is the ability to spend time. I still remember when Piyush and me, when we were younger and we were the creative fellow, he was the creative fellow and I was the client. We would have a meeting where the first 1 hour had nothing to do with the product or the brand and so on and so forth. But that's what actually forged a kind of relationship which allowed so many things to happen. So I would just say, the timelessness of the past. I think in our day-to-day lives, we forget that there's time to press the pause button, take a deep breath, smell the coffee, smell the roses, and then move on. I think that's the one thing from the
And
past.
if I was to take a different aspect of the same thing, I agree with him. It's informality. We could walk into our neighbor's house without announcing and enter and sit there. We could, and informality and responsibility, which is, you have, again, all of us have seen it, when there was a bereavement in the family,
Yes.
how the neighbors came in with the food. That is in our culture. So I think we should not lose our culture ever. The culture has so many beautiful things in it. And what we should take into the future is the culture also.
And that brings me to my final question. We're India at 75, India at 100. How do you imagine it to be? 3 words.
Prosperous, unified, and definitely a place where others look up to and say, I wish we were like them.
Century, celebrate, and then tell yourself, take a fresh card and say, I'm betting on 0. I'll score another 1.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, gentlemen. India couldn't be prouder to have these two as her sons.
Thank you. Thank you so much.